Good morning. It is 9 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and get started. So if I could ask for everybody's attention, we're going to go ahead and open with an invocation. Mr. Van Zant.
Pray with me, if you will. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day, this beautiful day. We thank you for the people that work here in this school system. We thank you that so many of them care enough to come out and watch the board deliberate on what they have to do, Lord. I ask that you bless the folks that are in the schools each day, the students that are there to learn today, Lord. As we approach spring break next week, I ask that you help everybody to have a good rest, Lord, to rejuvenate and keep our students safe as they're out and about doing just a lot of fun activities, Lord. We thank you for those around the world today that are standing watch, keeping our nation free so that we can meet in public in freedom, Lord, and discuss the direction that we need to go here for our school district. Lord, I pray a special blessing on these 5 ladies to my left this morning, our school board members, Lord. They're going to talk and deliberate, Lord, and they just please give them wisdom and discernment, clarity. Pray for everybody in the room to have peace and blessings to them and their families. All these things we ask in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to welcome each of you. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to attend today's meeting. This meeting is the board's opportunity to collaborate openly and make decisions in this quasi-judicial hearing. 30 minutes of public comment will be heard by the school board prior to the beginning of the impasse hearing. The board will only be taking public comments for 30 minutes, which shall be strictly enforced. During this time, I would ask each of you to conduct yourselves in a professional and courteous manner, respecting your fellow colleagues as well as this board in the same way that you would expect the same professionalism and respect from your students in your classroom each day. Okay, so with that, we are going to go ahead and start the 30-minute clock.
Madam Chair, point of order. Without talking about any substantive issues for why we're here today, I'd like to go on the record and voice my objection to having this meeting at 9 a.m. in the morning on a time when
Your objection is noted.
I'd like to ask, well, actually, in light of what I've just said, I am making a motion that we table this to a time when all of our stakeholders, all of our teachers can be present. I'm making a motion. I move that we do it, that we move this to 7 p.m. or whatever time that we can agree on when all of our teachers who are stakeholders in this can be present.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion to table. Was that it?
To table this whole agenda for another day
And
and time.
I have a motion by Ms. Karras and a second by Ms. Studdard. Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. No.
All right, in light of that, point of order again. And now that I see that we are moving forward with this meeting in objection to myself and Mrs. Studdard, I ask that we, let me see, I wrote this down, so I want to make sure I have it word for word, revoke any and all constraints on public speaking and allow as many people that want to speak the opportunity to be heard. I move that we... I move that we revoke any of the restraints or constraints on item number 2 so that everybody has the opportunity to speak. That is a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Ms. Karras and a second by Ms. Studdard. Is there any further discussion?
Yes. since I made that motion, and we do have a second, now it's a discussion item, and I just want to go on record and say that, I'll sit here all day if everyone in this room wants to speak. And Ms. McKinnon, I know I heard you and Ms. Graham years ago when we were talking about policy and removing the 10-minute speakers, saying that the public has the opportunity to speak, and I will sit here all day long, and I think everybody in this room should feel the same way. We should not be controlling it to 30 minutes. So I feel really strongly about that, and I'd like to hear from the rest of my board members how they feel about that. Because really, we didn't discuss. This wasn't discussed. It was an agenda that was put together. And I'm sure you were doing what you thought was in the best interest of the time constraints that we have. So I'd like us to discuss allowing more than 30 minutes for public comment.
Well, I'll begin by making my comment about that. First of all, let me just say that this is not a regular school board meeting. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. And the difference is that the difference in a quasi-judicial hearing is that each side has due process in being able to present their case. Now, in quasi-judicial hearings, public comment is not required. In the interest of fairness, because each side is being given 30 minutes, in the interest of fairness, I decided that we would allow the same 30 minutes to the public. And so I am not going to require any of my other board members to comment on this. They certainly can if they will, but I'm not going to require it. The agenda was set by me because it is my responsibility as the chairman to set this agenda. And so I set it, and in terms of the timing of it, it is not uncommon for these types of hearings to be heard during daytime hours. We considered everybody's agenda, we considered everybody's calendar, and primarily we considered everybody in the parties, excuse me, we considered all parties' calendars, so primarily the two attorneys. So with that, that's all I'm going to say. I am not willing to extend the 30 minutes of time, and so I'll let my other board members comment if they so wish. If they don't, we'll take that up for a vote.
Well, if they don't want to comment, that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Karakas. We are going to move on. Ms. Bush, would you please start the 30-minute calendar?
Excuse me, Ms. McKinnon. Her motion failed, not carried. You said it carried.
I'm sorry. That's what okay, the motion failed. Thank you. Motion failed.
Madam Chairman, may I ask a question?
We're going to, Ms. Studd.
No, I just want to ask a question. Why is the superintendent sitting up here with us as the judicial body?
That's my point of order. Thank you.
Yeah. Because we have not begun the public hearing yet. This is separate. We're going to take public comment apart from the public hearing, and that's the reason why.
And at that time, we will be sitting
Yes,
up here as
we
the
will be,
judicial body
yes.
without the superintendent because
Exactly.
he should be with the administration.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
We're going to switch. Okay. Please.
2 points of order.
Please begin, Ms. Bush. Please begin the 30 minutes. 30-minute
No,
comment
this
begins.
is the point of order. So this is not going to 30 minutes.
Excuse me, but you
This
are
is a
part.
point of order.
No, she doesn't.
You do not get a point of order. I'm sorry. The 30 minutes
Okay.
is beginning, so the clock is ticking.
All right. To Ms. Stutter's point, this is an intimidation factor to have Mr. Van Zant sitting up here. I have several people who want to speak. Many of those people are annual contract. They do not want to look at this superintendent who is also not supposed to be part of this proceeding and sitting up here. The second thing I need to ask is that I would like for you to tell me somewhere in this 447.403 where it says that you are a quasi-judicial body. You are not. It's legislative, so just correction.
Thank you. Next speaker.
In a recent superintendent's email Friday, the superintendent stated, quote, during the 2013-14 school year, I supported the governor and legislature as they appropriated over $6 million that was placed in the district's instructional salary schedule. Well, actually, he's never supported the teachers, and during the previous board meetings, the superintendent and Ms. McKinnon have spoken against this funding ever going to teachers' incomes. It was never placed in the salary schedule and was used as a one-time appropriation for teachers just before the elections. This actions are reminiscent of Monty Python's movie In Search for the Holy Grail. But I love my subjects' teachers. Then they were catapulted across the field of politics and shot like clay pigeons. Now we are attending a public hearing which will cost the Clay County Schools over $10,000, which lies solely in the hands of another politically driven decision by the superintendent and the chairperson. Ms. McKinnon continues to struggle with Robert's Rules of Order, Florida statutes, and school board policy. It is through the actions of Mr. Van Zandt and Ms. McKinnon that they both have lost the respect of almost every employee in Clay County Schools and the growing number of citizens and voters of Clay. The last quasi-judicial hearing in this room, which was also represented by the same labor attorney here today, in that case, one first unbiased judge found that Clay County had witnesses with conflicting testimony, information provided by staff and lawyers inaccurate, incomplete, and not credible. A second unbiased judge after that hearing had similar findings. Cost for the Clay County Schools, nearly $200,000 that could have gone for the students. Please consider the opinion presented to you by the same labor attorney, again hired by Mr. Van Zandt, is not biased and is an opinion offered for the sole purpose of attempting to win the point of view of the superintendent, which is the lawyer's job in his mind, I assume. Hopefully the board members can realize the levity of your decisions today. Please do not ignore the recommendations of another unbiased judge and yet another huge expense to the Clay County Schools. My father was a U.S. Marine Corps Master Sergeant serving 2 years in 2 wars. He was also a master horseman and horse trainer. He said, "You can mistreat and even beat a horse to submission, but sooner or later you will get kicked. You, sir and madam, have just been kicked with both hooves because of your own actions and disrespect for the people that work in this school system."
Dylan Fagan, address on file. In his objection to the special magistrate's ruling, Mr. Van Zandt stated, quote, "The anecdotal evidence the special magistrate referenced in support of his recommendation on the issue related to the teacher of the year that moved to Alachua County is arbitrary at best." Excuse me. No one except that teacher can cite the rationale for his leaving. I have a letter from that teacher, Dave Fields, that I'd like to read. "Sunlight is said to be the best of disinfectants." Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis. This famous quote came more than 100 years ago, as the United States was in the middle of trying to restore sunlight and transparency to the corrupt government of the Gilded Age. Unfortunately, we are now in a new era of forced darkness, as those in leadership are aiming to keep us in the dark so they can manipulate tax dollars for private profits. One of the chief organizations that they are using to accomplish this twisted plot is our elected school board. This began in 2012 when election rules were manipulated to ensure that much of the electorate in Clay would effectively not have a say in the elected superintendent. Once elected, the superintendent and those who support him continue to fight to keep Clay County teachers, parents, and voters in the dark. This is important to keep in mind because the same pattern has been and is continuing to be applied to the teachers and their contract in Clay County. In the last 8 years, student performance and achievement has continually improved in the district. Some like to claim that public education should be more handled like the private sector, where those responsible for the increased production would be rewarded financially. However, the teachers of Clay County have received exactly 0 pay increases in the last 8 years. This is happening while teachers watch county-level administrator positions increase with pay raises and countless dollars given to the charter school industry. Now the district is claiming financial hardship and making those responsible for the achievement in Clay balance the budget on their paychecks, even though an appointed impartial arbitrator agreed that the very small pay increases are reasonable. I left Clay County because as teachers, my wife and I felt another county did a better job of taking care of its teachers. In my 8th year of teaching, I finally will see my first raise, and our health care costs will be dramatically lower. And after 3 years of successful evaluations, I will have contract protections that I could have only dreamed of in Clay. Again, in an opportunity to keep Clay County's working voters and teachers in the dark about what is going on, they have scheduled this meeting in the middle of a workday. This is consistent with their way of keeping all stakeholders in the dark. In their handling of the teacher contracts and other issues within the district, the school board and leadership has demonstrated the same values of the Gilded Age bosses of 100 years ago. I hope that my letter and the concern of other parents and the teachers in this room today, we can begin to shine a light on these injustices, and as Louis Brandes says, disinfect our system. Sincerely, David Fields, 2015 Clay County Teacher of the Year, now teaching in Alachua County.
Christopher Trahan, my address is on file. First off, thank you, Ms. Karakis and Ms. Stutter, for speaking up for the people of this community, and thank you for attending to the inconvenience and disregard that this hearing was scheduled. Today, a decision will be made, and a message will be sent out to the voters. The question that each of you must now ask is that, what is it that you want to tell the voters of Clay County? All eyes are now on each of you. We're waiting to hear what your actions will tell us. Your decisions today will tell the voters one of two things. Either you stand with the teachers of Clay County, or you have no regard or respect for us as professionals. Failure to respect the magistrate's ruling will tell the voters of Clay County you are committed to continuing to neglect the well-being and the needs of your employees. It will tell this community and its voters that you do not value the hard work that we have done as educators to restore Clay to an A. By continuing to turn a blind eye to the teachers, you are in fact also neglecting the children in our classrooms. It is impossible to put our students first if teachers are repeatedly put last. However, you have the opportunity to also tell the voters of Clay that you are committed to standing with your teachers and that their pleas have not fallen on deaf ears. If you choose to respect the magistrate's ruling, you will show the voters that you recognize the needs of your employees. You will tell the community you respect the work that we have done thus far with the children in our classrooms and are committed to continuing that work. You will also show the voters that you value serving our students more than your own personal political agendas. Understand this. It is not the wall-to-wall academies of Clay or the PLCs that have restored Clay County's A. It is the dedication of the very teachers that are assembled here and those that are diligently working in their classrooms at this very moment that have restored Clay County to an A. So today boils down to one simple question. What do you want to tell the voters of this community? We are listening, we are watching, and come August, be rest assured, we will be voting. Thank you.
My name is Diane Powers. My address is on file. Let me begin by saying that I have always been proud of our school district. I've been an employee for 20 years. I have never spoken before. Both my daughters attended Clay schools for their entire K-12 education, resulting in IB program diplomas, Bright Future scholarships, and an engineering degree from UF. I'm happy with Clay County. That was some years ago. I became a teacher even after seeing that the miracles worked by Clay teachers every day were meeting ever-increasing mandates with little or no support. I chose to work with arguably the most challenging students, those with emotional and behavioral disabilities. I chose to direct interns, and I chose to mentor master's degree candidates, all because I believed that this district would support its own mission statement to promote, quote, the recruitment, hiring, and retention of a diversified and highly qualified instructional staff whose mission is to provide students with learning opportunities that are rigorous, relevant, and transcend beyond the boundaries of the classroom, unquote. However,
The short-sighted decisions being made by this district do not reflect this mission. In fact, in the same year that St. Johns County is implementing a tax to support schools, Clay has decided to inexplicably cut property taxes while simultaneously crying poverty over its less than 3% reserves. Our district performs comparably to St. John's, and yet we're losing new hires to St. John's every day due to the more equitable compensation received for the same training, education, extra duties, and mountainous paperwork that are required by Clay. So yet again, the district denies teachers their equitable compensation and recognition for their everyday sacrifices above and beyond any interpretation of job requirements. In addition, by allowing new hires to leapfrog existing, hardworking, loyal employees, you send the wrong message. 50% of new teachers leave the profession in less than 5 years, and yet you wish to send the message to these new hires that once you are indeed an employee, you no longer matter. And make no mistake, we are discussing needs, not wants. This compensation, these are needs. The vast majority of Clay teachers are the sole support of their families, and many of them are taking second or even third jobs. This is a disgrace. Thank you.
My name is Victoria Kidwell, and my address is on file. The special magistrate has heard both sides and made an impartial recommendation for compromise. This is a compromise that balances the needs of all parties and seeks a way forward by showing some respect to teachers and deference to the financial difficulties that Clay County has recently overcome. Mr. Van Zandt has responded by rejecting every recommendation of the special magistrate. There's only one way we can view such a response. Despite his public professions of praise for teachers, his actions prove once again that he feels no gratitude, no respect, and no regard for the dedicated professionals that have made this county the A school district that it is. Today, the board will vote on the special magistrate's recommendations, and I'm sure that you've read them, but I want to remind you of a few important quotes. On annual contract teacher protections, which 27 other Florida counties have adopted already, the special magistrate, Leonard Helfand, stated, treating its teachers as valuable, respected professionals with job security is in the interest and welfare of the public, of the citizens, and the families who utilize the school system, and of the current teachers who are also part of the public citizenry of Clay County. On in-service training points, it is common knowledge that in other professions such as medicine, there is not a denial of a professional credit for relevant training because the training is not utilized following the professional development class. The union's compromise proposal to receive partial credit for relevant training regardless of immediate implementation is reasonable and respects teachers' professional opinions. On insurance, the increased contribution of employees for health insurance results in a net loss to salaries. The district should be more proactive in seeking cost containment solutions for health insurance, including the provision of a no-cost plan. On leapfrogging, the benefit of giving the existing teachers an incentive to remain in the community rather than favoring new teachers should be apparent. On supplements, he said, the use of $35,000 for calculating supplements was a temporary reprieve granted to the district in 2014-15, and the magistrate is confident that the union will be able to negotiate a return to that $38,000 figure as soon as the financial condition allows, which is now. On salary increases, if it were not for the financial situation, a just settlement would favor some increase to these teachers. The magistrate is of the opinion that the $1,000 increase would be justified and reasonable to bring teachers close to the state average. The MOU to reopen negotiations if the fund balance is at or above 3% after the fourth calculation is helpful in this regard. My words. As I tell my students, your actions speak louder than your words. It's what you do in the world that counts much more than what you profess. Will this school board take a step toward compromise that begins to repair the damaged morale of Clay teachers? Will you vote to honor the recommendations of the special magistrate and finally give the teachers of Clay a reason to believe that the toxic disregard of this county towards its employees might finally end?
Julie Schaff, address on file. Good morning. Often when coming to an agreement, one party takes a hard stance or a non-negotiating position. It's done all over the world, every single day. It's a great strategy, unless you are in a long-term committed relationship. Yes, my friends, we are in a long-term relationship. This relationship will outlast every single one of us. One of our mutual goals between the Clay County School Board and the Clay County Education Association is to provide the excellent teachers of Clay County and A County with the financial support that is available from the state. When agreements cannot be reached, having an outside mediator or special magistrate to look at things with an unbiased opinion is valuable to both parties. Their job is to find the point of differences between the parties that can be resolved without harming either party. Their job is to find things that can be accomplished. The special magistrate stated and recommended the benefit of giving the existing teachers an incentive to remain in the community rather than favoring the new teachers should be apparent. Maybe you didn't realize that your stance was unreasonable. Maybe you didn't recognize the distinct lack of respect that your position implies. Having a fresh set of eyes on the matter should certainly be meaningful. School board members, I ask you to step out of your current mindset. I urge you to reconsider your hard bargaining position. I urge you from refraining that go-to tactic of hard stance. It damages our long-term relationship. It's wasteful and non-productive. I urge you to consider the current teachers' needs. Keep the teachers that made Clay County an A County. I urge you to accept the special magistrate's impasse recommendations as acceptable because they can be accomplished. Thank you.
Melissa Kaplan, and my address is on file. I would appreciate it if you, as our elected officials, would demonstrate your support of your teachers by accepting all of the special magistrate recommendations, just as CCEA has. Let your actions and words today reflect your priorities, just like our actions and words reflect our priorities in our classrooms each and every single day. You, Chairwoman, asked for respect and professionalism in your opening statement, and that is exactly what we are asking from you, the board. We demand your respect. We have earned it. When we made this school district an A district, we earned that respect. Make no mistake, we did that. Not you, not your overpaid administrators, not the constant obstacles thrown at us by this board, but we, the teachers of Clay County and the support personnel of Clay County, not you, but us, made this district an A district again. We did that, not you. You, Chairwoman, said you considered everyone's schedule when making this meeting. I will beg to differ with you, ma'am. You did not consider my schedule. You did not consider the schedule of anyone sitting back here. You did not consider the schedule of the teachers of Clay County, the 35,000 students that are now in a substitute situation in their classroom. You didn't consider them. And more importantly than the students in this county is their parents. You didn't consider their schedules one bit. I am asking you once again to accept the special magistrate's recommendations and to support your teachers and your school personnel. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dunia Jean-Baptiste, and you have my information on file. In all the years that I've taught, I have never had to put myself in a position such as this. Anyone look at my record would know that I am not one to not be at work unless there is an issue with my children or my health. So the reason why I am here is because obviously this is an issue that is of the utmost importance to myself. I am an immigrant. My parents came here from another country. I had to learn English. One of the things that my parents taught me was, you make sure you get your education. No matter where you are, you get your education. No one can take that away from you. They taught me that a teacher is to be held at the utmost respect because of what is given to them. They are responsible. They are responsible to take what is dark and help make it light. They are responsible to take one thing from what it is and transform it to something else. I teach intensive reading. I have normally had students who, for whatever reason, have been made to feel that they could not. And they have, during the course of our relationship, figured out that, yes, I can. And it takes hard work. My parents instilled in me the importance of hard work. They've told me that if you want anything in life, anything that is worth fighting for, you have to be willing to work hard for it. And the only thing I can say is I work hard. I am not a lazy person, and I have had the pleasure of working with people that are like-minded like me. You want something done, you need to be willing to get your hands dirty, and I don't have a problem with that. My issue right now, which is why I am before you, is I have taught at Charles E. Bennett, helped Charles E. Bennett to become an A school. I am not patting myself on the back, it's reality. You can find it in the newspaper. I have taught at Dr. Zenley, and now I am at Oakleaf High School. And I wonder why it is that I work hard, and I'm not asking for anything extraordinary. I'm asking for what I've earned. I work, and therefore, I should get what I am told that is due. We went from steps to levels. I don't understand why I continue to show up to work. I do what I'm supposed to do, and I go beyond, just like several other teachers do. Then why is it that I can't get what I'm supposed to get? I'm a straightforward, to the point kind of person. I mean what I say what I mean. You have told me that if I do what I'm supposed to do, according to this document that several people with education have created, that this is what would happen. So I just want to understand, why do I show up? Why do I follow the rules? Why do I work with my students? And why is it that I'm not getting what you said? Action speaks louder than words, and I believe that. And I just want your actions today to reflect exactly what you have been putting forth in whatever medium you have chosen. But I know that since I have been in Clay County, I have heard words, but I have not seen the actions to follow it. The students that I teach, I tell them, work hard. I will be with you along the way. We can do this together, but understand, I cannot do more than you can do. I cannot want this more than you want it. What do you want for us? Because we show up. You came up with some documents that told us, for every year you work, you will get this. You tell us how important we are. You tell us that you are so pleased to be working in a county in which the teachers have high standards. I have high standards for myself, so therefore I can have them for my students. Can I see it paying off? And again, I'm not asking for anything above and beyond. I'm just asking for exactly what you said you would do. Because you don't show up to check up on me. You trust that I show up and that I am a person of my word and that I do what I say I am going to do. That I fulfill the commitments and obligations that I have made. Well, please understand, I expect the same from you. And I'm a realist. And I believe a lot of the times people come with their minds made up. I'm asking you to hear me, to hear us. And the way I look at it is this. I try to treat people the same way I want to be treated, and I try to treat other people's children the way that I want mine treated. If your children were in my position right now and they work for Clay County, what would you be asking them to do?
My name is Dr. Rebecca Shively. My address is on file. I've been a teacher in Clay County for 11 years. I'm here to urge the board to follow the magistrate's recommendations. They are minimal. Many of them will cost you nothing, but they will earn you great respect with your employees. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Joel Miller, and my address is on file, and I'm scared to be here, to be very honest. You see, my mom is an administrator in this county, and my wife is an annual contract teacher. And so before I start, I'm asking you, do not dismiss my wife without cause on the basis of what I have to say. That's my request to you today. Mr. Van Zandt, you said that due process for annual teachers would be against the spirit of the law, but you did not reference the other 27 counties in an email that you sent to all employees. If I were to send a reply to all employees, I would be told that I was using political speech. I don't like that. Mrs. McKinnon, I had a conversation with you in which you said that the scheduling of this meeting was necessary to accommodate all stakeholders. You were the first conversation I had, and it was a delightful time. I appreciate you taking that time. My next conversation was with Mrs. Carrickas, and then later in the evening with Mrs. Studdard. I spent 2 hours talking to school board people on the same day. I'm not sure what happened to me. And I found out that they both had appointments and were not consulted about the time of this meeting, and that one of them had already put in that this is not a good day. And yet the meeting occurred, and so my question is this. Forgetting the people that are standing behind me, were all the people that were necessary to be at this meeting consulted about the 9 a.m. time? That is a question. I am not implying an accusation. I am simply trying to understand better. A lot of these recommendations will cost you nothing. It takes a lot of courage for me to be here right now because, again, I don't know what happens next. I'm asking the 5 of you. I'm asking you to do the right thing. Thank you.
Trudy Lawless, my name is on file. I stand before you today to ask you to stand up for the teachers of Clay County. My husband and I are both teachers. We are simple people with simple needs. To be honest, a raise would be nice, but my husband and I will be fine either way. My concern is for my profession. You say you're having trouble attracting new teachers to the county because of the step issue. I propose that you treat the teachers you already have with respect, valuing their contributions to this so-called A districts, and perhaps you wouldn't have so many positions to fill. It is madness to think that I can get a $2,000 raise if I quit and got rehired. There's a high price. There's a high price to the high turnover rate in Clay County. I'm not just talking about money here. Every teacher who sticks around beyond the first couple of years has regrets about that first year. We do our best, and most first-year teachers are just fine, but that first year is never your best. By continuing these practices that undervalue your current workforce, you are doing the citizens of Clay County, and more specifically the children of Clay County, a major disservice.
Madam Chairman, my name is Andrew Sadlow. I live at 1108 Grove Park Drive South. I want to let you know I have a list of 29 people that still would like to speak. I would like you to take the time to listen to them because they did take the day to come here. Never mind the people that couldn't take the day to come here. Thank you.
We're going to stick to our strict 30-minute limit. Where are we? We have about 25 seconds.
I'm Angela Curvier. I live at 778 Sunny Stroll Drive. First time speaking. I'm here just saying that pay needs to be competitive to keep excellent, effective, and highly effective teachers. Our students need teachers that feel valued to continue encouraging their efforts in the face of the challenges that we meet every day.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, this is going to conclude public comment. At this time, I'm going to ask the superintendent to please take a seat down with his party, and if Mr. Sykes, our attorney. Okay, this concludes public comment. Now it is time to start the impasse hearing, so I'm going to call the impasse hearing to order. At this time, I ask the 2 bargaining teams to come forward, which I believe they are. This hearing will include a maximum of 30 minutes of oral argument by the District Labor Attorney Eric Holzhauser. Mr. Holzhauser may save some of his time for rebuttal, but his time may not exceed 30 minutes. After Mr. Holzhauser, we will hear a maximum of 30 minutes from the CCEA. I ask both parties to address their arguments to the school board in a courteous and professional fashion, and during these oral arguments, this would be the only opportunity for the board to ask questions of the parties. Okay? Once the presentations are complete, no additional evidence will be presented to the school board, who will then deliberate and render a decision. Mr. Holhauser, if you would please, you're already at the podium, and your 30 minutes will begin now.
Madam Chairwoman, I have a question first before we begin.
We're going to begin with the 30 minutes.
It has to do with Mr. Holzhauser's presentation.
Okay, hold the time. Go ahead.
I want to say that I have a problem with if there's a procedural violation.
Well,
in
Okay,
the-
stop. You're going to have 30 minutes. Mrs. Butler, you're going to...
This has
Hold
nothing
on.
to do with my case.
Okay.
Mrs.
Stop
Butler,
for a second,
stop.
please. This is in the form of an appellate argument. It's 30 minutes per side. It is highly out of order for any appellate argument for the other side to get up and stop the other side at the beginning of the presentation. You have the opportunity to address whatever you have during your 30 minutes. You can't use his 30 minutes to address your concerns.
I'm not using his 30 minutes.
And
I'm asking for you
you're-
to address the procedural problem.
What you're doing right now is you're using additional time that's not allotted to add to the argument. I recommend that you rule her out of order, and I recommend that you allow Mr. Holzhauser to proceed.
Mrs. Butler, you are out of order. If you would please take your seat. Mr. Holhauser, your 30 minutes will begin now.
Madam Chair, may I ask Mr. Sykes a question? Mr. Sykes, does the CCA get a rebuttal if they save 5 minutes of their time?
Yes.
No. What happens we're not starting any time.
I'm just curious because Mr.
All right,
Kenny
what we're
said
doing
that
is,
Holzhauser
it's in the
does.
form, I've completely researched this. It's in the form of an appellate argument.
you.
Yes, I have.
Imagine that.
This is in the form of an appellate argument. When you have an appellate argument, what happens is the petitioner goes first. They can reserve so much of their time they believe is efficient and separate, okay? The respondent then is allowed to proceed. They use their time completely. If, during the petitioner's time in reply, he raises, or she, raises an issue that was not previously addressed, and it goes into a point that the respondent did not have an opportunity to reply to, then what's called surrebuttal. And at that point in time, the respondent gets an opportunity to have additional time briefly to simply address the points that were raised in the rebuttal by the petitioner that had not been previously had the opportunity to respond to. That's the only opportunity for surrebuttal.
Thank you.
Okay, and so just to kind of clarify your question, both parties can use their 30 minutes however they choose. If they want to save 5 minutes of it for rebuttal, they can do that.
That's not what he just said, Mr.
The
McKay.
respondent does not do that.
Okay. Sorry.
In standard appellate practice, the respondent does not have the opportunity to reserve any additional time. That's called surrebuttal, and that is only allowed to be used in appellate procedures and in quasi-judicial procedures in the event that there is an argument that was made by the petitioner during the petitioner's reply that they had not had an opportunity to respond to during their case in chief.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Holhauser, your 30 minutes will begin now.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here. My name is Eric Holzhauser. Have represented the Clay County School District in the impasse negotiations. I was not part of the bargaining team, but I was involved in the impasse proceedings. But I understand from the bargaining team that the bargaining went forward on a reopener for 1 year, and that's what we're here for, and that the union declared impasse at the third meeting. We went, and which is a little early in my experience in collective bargaining. One of the things, and we've heard some from public comment, but one of the things that was negotiated over was salary. And salary is not an issue in this proceeding here today. The special magistrate recommended the district's salary proposal, and the union did not object to it. So that operates as a tentative agreement on that issue. So that's not something before the board today. Salaries have been agreed upon, and it includes a reopener. The wage proposal, salary proposal, includes a reopener if the fourth calculation shows that the district reserves have gone at or above 3%. Now, the reason the district made this proposal and is recommending is that the Department of Education, and I don't know if anybody can read this because it's awfully small, but it made clear in a letter that was received by Mr. Van Zandt in October, after the impasse was declared, by the way, where the Department of Education made clear that the district's fund reserves were below 3% for the prior year and were projected to be below 3% for the current year. And in that, they say we consider a financial condition that is below 3% to be a sign of an unhealthy financial condition. As a result, the district offered a salary proposal plus a reopener. If in the fourth calculation, which is coming up in the next couple of months, it shows that reserve level is up, that we'll reopen. That particular proposal was accepted or recommended by the special magistrate. The union did not reject that, which means we have tentative agreement on salary. And that's not an issue. The only thing that's going to be an issue before this board is what the parties are still in disagreement over. And there are a few items. There's economic item. There's one economic item, really two. One I think is more technical. But we've got an insurance proposal that is we're at impasse on. The union had proposed and went to impasse on $300 per pay period contribution by the employer, increasing from the current $258 per pay period. We just got yesterday the union's recommendations to this board, and they've lowered that. Now, they declared impasse back in August, but they've lowered that just yesterday to $288, but still a significant increase in the budget, in any kind of budgeted item. The other economic issue that I think is only technically at impasse is supplements. The special magistrate, if you review the special magistrate's recommendation, it appears he's favoring the district's proposal on supplements, but I'm not there yet. The district's proposal on supplements, but neither party objected to that, but technically he made no recommendation on supplements in his order, so I think that's before. And then there are three non-economic items that are before this school board. One you've heard some about in the public comment, and that's automatic renewal of annual contracts. The speakers pointed out that 27 school districts in the state of Florida have adopted some automatic renewal provision. Well, that leaves 40 districts who have not, and I'll get into that a bit more later. Secondly, even though the special magistrate recommended, and it was not objected to, the district's proposal on flexible scheduling for in-service, there still is an issue on in-service in terms of partially awarding in-service training credits for those who do the seat time, the in-class time, but don't do the implementation part where the training requires both. Now, there's no dispute that if the training only requires seat time, both parties agree you get credit for that. The only issue is where the training requires both seat time and implementation. The district proposal is that you get the credit after you do both. The union's proposal is that it's split in half, or one part for one and one part for the other. And even the special magistrate there conditioned his recommendation to adopt the union's proposal on the Department of Education saying that's okay. And we've not gotten any okay to that. And finally, the other non-economic issue is discounting 3 years' experience for new hires coming into the district. And we want to maintain the status quo on that language. The union is proposing that discount, which the special magistrate recommended. Well, let me first talk about insurance, the first economic item. We propose maintaining the status quo, $258 per pay period. The union, throughout this, has
Excuse me. Excuse me. Please, I'm asking for your professional courtesy. Go ahead.
Reminds me a little bit about a presidential debate. But anyway, the $300 per pay period increase that the union proposed would cost, just for the instructional personnel, $1.5 million. And if we did it for everybody, including the non-instructional personnel, that tab goes up to $2.5 million. That's what we rejected. Now, just yesterday, like I said, the union came up with a brand new proposal, even though we've been at impasse since August of 2015, that says they'll go down to $288 per pay period, which is the cost of the base insurance in the school district. That's still, if that were applied to everybody in the school district, that would still be almost $1.9 million added to the budget. And again, we haven't gotten to that fourth calculation where we know that the reserves are going to be at that 3%.
Excuse me. Yeah. Go ahead.
Besides the economic cost, which again we can address if the reopener's triggered on the fourth calculation, we have what I consider an inequity if the teachers are awarded a higher contribution for insurance than the other bargaining unit or other employees of Clay County. This same bargaining representative union group represents CESPA as well in negotiations. CESPA agreed to the status quo on insurance contribution. That contract is both, that's gone through the process, and there's no proposal there at all to increase the insurance contribution. So if you gave it to the teachers and not to the other employees of Clay County, that would be inequitable. So there's two reasons. There's cost, and there's just treating everybody fairly. So we respectfully request.
Hang on a second, sir. If he keeps getting interrupted, I recommend you give him additional time. If the party's being interrupted, give them additional time.
Hey, folks, look, I'm going to ask you guys to please do not be disruptive. I'm going to give warning. I'm going to start giving warnings, and if you continue to violate those warnings, I will begin asking you to leave one by one. So please.
And Madam Chairman, if anybody interrupts the union when they're discussing,
Right.
give them additional time as well.
Absolutely. Mr. Holhauser, you may continue.
Okay. And because of the inequity of the union's proposal and the extreme cost of it, we're urging this board to adopt as part of part of the superintendent's recommendation to stick with the status quo for now on insurance, realizing that a reopener may be coming up, and of course we're almost into bargaining for the next school year. Now, the second economic item is supplements. As I said, it appeared that the special magistrate recommended the district's proposal on supplements, but he didn't come out and say it specifically. The union's recommendations that we got yesterday didn't even address supplements, so I presume they read it the same way. So we may be okay there, but just to make the record clear, I want to urge this board to adopt the district's proposal on supplements, which again is maintaining the status quo based on a beginning salary of $35,000 a year. If you look at, we did this, these are exhibits that we used in the special magistrate proceeding. If you look at the supplements for Clay County and comparator counties that we used in that process, you'll see, if you study it carefully, that Clay County is the highest in supplements in 8 of those 13 categories, and in the others, they're near the top. So certainly in terms of the current supplements, we're in the ballpark or at the top of the range when it comes to our market comparators, which I think is relevant. And again, we're just urging we maintain the status quo for this current school year, subject to negotiations in the future, in any, if and when more dollars become available. So that's just sort of a technical thing. The union has not recommended anything particular on supplements, probably thinking also like we did that the special magistrate recommended in our favor on that. Now we go to non-economic items. The first and foremost is automatic renewal of annual contracts. In 2011, the Florida legislature did away with continuing contracts prospectively for school teachers under the Student Success Act. That was an intentional, purposeful move by the legislature that they thought in the public interest it was better not to have a system of tenured teachers going forward. And that is something that the school district here has held to, but the school district did in a prior negotiations not long ago, did adopt a process where annual contract teachers who were not renewed went into a pool who got preference over new hires in terms of being reappointed. So there's some protection there. But by adopting the union's proposal, which the special magistrate did recommend, he's a college professor. He was he ruled, as one of those in public comment said, that based on public interest and welfare. But our position is that the Florida legislature determined by the voters what the public interest and welfare is, and they did away with continuing contracts. So our position is that we should stick to the status quo on that and not to recommend the special magistrate or the union's position on automatic renewal. You'll see that even though they claim it's not automatic because you have to get good evaluations, that here's how many people got less than effective evaluations in the last 2 years. It would have been one person out of all the school teachers. So in effect, what the automatic renewal does is puts in a just cause provision for school teachers that is contrary to the intent of the Florida legislature back in 2011. And one thing I want to point out, somebody pointed out how great a job that the St. Johns County School District does, but my understanding is that school district is taking the position that implementing automatic renewal is illegal, that it violates the Florida statute, and if it's not illegal, it's a non-mandatory subject to bargaining that can't be taken to impasse. So because the Florida legislature in its change made clear that annual contracts would be in the discretion of the superintendent, and it's not something that can be overridden by contract. So just so you know, the St. John's School District, I believe, is taking that position. So we urge you to adopt the status quo proposal on that. Next is regarding in-service points. This is where, again, I explained before that when the in-service training requires classroom training, seat time, there's no dispute that once you do the seat time, you get the credit. The only dispute is there are certain types of in-service training that the Florida Department of Education says require both seat time and implementation, doing it in the classroom. Our proposal is for that particular type of training that you get the credit once you complete both phases. The union's proposal is that you break that in two. So somebody could get credit for seat time and get some credit, but never complete the required training. The administration thinks that that is contrary to what the Department of Education protocols are, and we're not aware of that being allowed by the Department of Education. So we urge this board to adopt the in-service proposal. It's also an area where we're going toward an arbitration on it, and I think if there's a decision here, we'll clear that up and maybe avoid having to arbitrate something that we don't think really needs to be arbitrated. And even, as I said before, the special magistrate had recommended the union's proposal on that, but he said conditioned on the Department of Education agreeing to that protocol. We have got nothing from the union or anybody else saying the Department of Education agrees with that. So we urge that you retain or adopt the district's proposal on awarding in-service points. And finally, the leapfrogging issue. Under the union's proposal, which the special magistrate recommended, everybody that is hired or new hires would lose 3 years of service in deciding where to slot them when they're being hired. Actually, the district has entered into a memorandum of understanding with the union on an ad hoc basis to do that anyway. But it's not willing, the district's not willing to embed that permanently in the collective bargaining language and think that there may be some better language that can be utilized in a contract setting that doesn't. And some of these others, and we pointed this out in the arbitration, is some of these other types of language talk about you limit the amount of credit, to a certain maximum when new hires, but not take it away. And these are examples of language that other districts have in their collective bargaining agreements on trying to avoid that sort of leapfrogging effect. One is that credit for combined teaching and other experience may be allowed up to a maximum of 10 years. You're not taking 3 years away, but you're capping it. And then there's another one where it's maxed out at 15 years. So that, again, impasse was declared at the third meeting. There wasn't a lot of discussion on some of these finer points. But this, I think, from the district standpoint, is maybe a different or better way to go than what the union proposed and the special magistrate recommended. We think, too, that now that we're well through this school year, this is something better set to maintain the status quo this year, which we're following an MOU that does what the union is proposing, and then for the next year of the contract, we can discuss things in more detail on this. But at this point in time, we're urging this board to adopt the superintendent's recommendations on all of the items that are at impasse, which doesn't include anything about salary, because that's not an impasse. Thank you very much. I've got, 11 minutes left on the thing here.
Okay.
And that's it. Are you up next? Oh. Here's the flip. You can ask questions.
It
goes into his time, but you can ask.
Right, but he has 11 minutes left. Does anybody from the board have any questions for Mr. Holzhauser at this time? He has 11 minutes of his time, so.
have questions for him. Do you want me to do them?
It has to be done during his 30 minutes, yes. Okay.
Mr. Holzhauser, thank you for coming here today. My main question is, I'd like to know if you could explain to this board what an ex parte communication is.
Well, ex parte communication technically is where one party goes to the other without letting the other side know about it, to have a communication in something where there's a judicial type proceeding.
Would that be what the email that we received on March 4th from Mr. Van Zant that he DL'd the entire district on? Would that be considered an ex parte communication where he basically gave his argument of what we should be hearing from you today and not from Mr. Van Zant while we were already in the insulated period? Is that considered an
My opinion that it doesn't, and there's a couple reasons for that. Well, that it's not an ex parte.
Please let him speak. I really want to hear what he says.
My opinion is that it's not an improper ex parte communication.
It's not, even though we were already...
Well, I don't see how this relates to the disputed impasse issue.
Well, I'm just wondering because I feel like we all got this. All the board members got this. And we shouldn't have had any communication at all, and it feels like it was biased.
Well, the union got it too, so that, I think, resolves that problem.
Was it sent directly to the union, to Ms. Butler?
Well, I think one of the union president is a teacher that got the email.
Thank you for answering that. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I think we're good. Did anybody else? Okay. Okay. All right. So now we will have the union come up, and 30 minutes will begin. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, the CCA did not reject any of the recommendations of the magistrate, mostly because he ruled in our favor for 4 of the 6 issues. The superintendent, however, did reject everything that he ruled against him. Secondly, I want to speak to supplements. Mr. Holzhauser is mistaken. The magistrate, I have his ruling here, did rule on supplements, and this is what he said. However, if the school board does not adopt the union's insurance proposal, it should consider maintaining the $38,000 figure to calculate supplements as a fair concession to the union, which is in the public interest. So therefore, he did rule on that, and we are going to suggest or recommend that you do take his recommendation and rule in our favor with regards to supplements. That was not an objection of either party, so I was very disappointed to even hear that brought up. We consider that accepted and TA'd. So first I want to talk to you about annual contract. First of all, I want to tell you that I had several folks call me and tell me that they could not come today because they were fearful. Okay? And that is where our annual contracts live daily. So, and Laura, thank you very much for reminding me about 447. I'm sorry. I do want to remind this body that you are a legislative body and we are trusting that you will work in an unbiased manner, think in an unbiased manner, and do not let certain emails influence your decision. Thank you. So let's talk about what the contract does say. First of all, there are certain things that you have to do, and in summary, to be definitively reappointed as an AC teacher. First, you have to complete your 1 year of probation, which the law says. You need to have an effective and a highly effective evaluation. You need to be recommended by your principal. And then there has to be a funded allocation in the district. However, the last part is that we did bargain in a few years ago that our folks, if there was not a position in the district, that our folks would be allowed to go into a phase known as Phase 3, and that only guarantees them an interview. It does not guarantee them a spot. It only means that they can interview prior to the outside public coming in. I can tell you we have lost a lot of highly effective and effective annual contract teachers because they're not a good fit. So we have to address this problem. So let's talk about what our proposal was. Our proposal was not PSC-like status. We know that we no longer have PSC status. We have old continuing contract, we have PSC status, and now we have annual contract. So what we're asking for is that after 3 years of effective or highly effective evaluations, that our annual contract teachers will be reappointed to this district, provided there is an allocation somewhere in this district. So as it stands right now, the allocation has to be at their school. If the allocation is not at their school, then they go back to the phase and hope you get something, but you may not and probably won't, as statistics show. What we're saying is if there's an allocation that they are certified for anywhere in this district, that they have they be placed there. And the reason why is they are vetted. They have proven they have done their first year, which we know, as teachers have said, is their year under their belt, and they are now in their third or fourth year, and they are feeling confident in front of those kids. Why are we going to take a brand new person off the street that we know nothing about, we have not vetted, they don't know the Clay way, and we're going to allow them to jump into a position unless it is your neighbor down the street that you promised a job as soon as they got out of school? Next, we want to talk about what we are not proposing. We are not proposing that you have no way to get rid of an ineffective or a poor teacher. Okay? The contract, as well as statute, states that if a teacher is ineffective, there are provisions for getting rid of those teachers. Okay? We have said if they have 3 years of effective and highly effective, they have to maintain that. We're not saying after the 3 years they can do whatever they want, and if they get ineffective. No, the language is clear. They must maintain an effective or higher evaluation. Furthermore, we are saying that the district still has the ability to terminate under just cause. That's law and contract. So if your people are doing something they're not supposed to do, regardless of if they're effective or highly effective, there are still provisions for this district to do what they need to do as managers. We are not asking for anything special. We are saying that these folks simply need to know that they have a job each year. They don't want to go at the end of a year and sit there through the summer and hope they get a call back. Then if they do get a call back, they have to hope it's before October 1st, because otherwise they'll be considered a break in service and they have to start all over, which is a nice cost-effective cost containment measure for the district. All right? And then We are asking that the language is not proposing that the district retain every teacher regardless of the need. If a reduction in force should become necessary, there is also contract language by which you can follow to make that happen too. So we're not asking for anything precious other than the fact that these people who are effective and highly effective people have a job the next year, if there is one available, above anybody from the outside. I want to talk about a couple of important facts on this. If you take a look at the document I gave you that has highlighting there, this is from our transcript. And if you will take a look at that, you will see that Mr. Holzhauser, in his own admission, says, the transcript says, Mr. Holzhauser says, while it's not prohibited, and he's speaking to the special magistrate here, while it's not prohibited, and the magistrate says, what statute is that? Mr. Holzhauser says, it doesn't prohibit you, but it's contrary to the intent of the statute, I think. And also, ... So, as you can see, we have an attorney who doesn't even believe that it's prohibitive, and he made that in his statement to the special magistrate. Secondly, I want to point out that 28 of 67 counties have now adopted this language, and there has been no reprisal. As a matter of fact, Orange County adopted this language the very year after it came out of statute. Senate Bill 736 was adopted, and there has been no reprisal. So therefore, we are saying that this is permitted. Another quote from your attorney that he did bring up, and that was about our threshold to receive an effective rating is a 60% on the evaluation system, which is an artificially low standard established by the Clay Assessment Committee, of which the union representatives constitute the majority. I have given you the sign-in sheets for the CAS meetings. As you can see, I have gone through. If it does not indicate the board team and the CCA team, which you can see on that first page it does, the board team far outweighs the CCA team. That one was from August of 2015. I have several more sign-in sheets. Here is one from 2014. I have another from 2014, one from 2013, a couple from 2013. And as you can see, there's a star out beside all of the CCA representatives. Another thing I want to note to you is that the CCA representatives, myself and Ms. Paiva, are not voting members on that committee. And on top of that, that committee simply makes suggestions to our bargaining teams. They cannot do anything unilaterally. They must make a suggestion to our bargaining team. The information that is in this CAS system has been vetted by your high-level district administrators. So therefore, everything that was developed in that committee is something we all agreed to. This isn't something that the union pushed down anyone's throat, because we certainly do not have a majority on that committee. Next, I want to go over why this matters. There's a cost associated with new employee training. And I know that Ms. McKinnon likes to talk about having worked out in the corporate world. I worked in the corporate world. And one of the very first things that we understand is there is a high cost to turnover, because you have to retrain folks. And in our industry, that cost is not just financial. That cost affects our students, the students of this county. One of the things that you have to take into account is how this affects your community, the welfare of the public. And that is that this community deserves the continuity of annual contract teachers. Once they have vetted themselves through our system to their third year, this community, our students, deserve that continuity. And most importantly, they deserve that efficiency and experience. If you take a look at the next frame, this talks about retention. We've got retention problems here. We've got folks leaving in droves. So I want to take a look at a couple of statistics that were provided to us by Ms. Cornegay in one of our board meetings, school board meetings. First of all, in 13-14, 132 resignations and 52 retirements, a total of 184. Then we had 190 resignations with 72 retirements. Folks are leaving this county. How can you expect that they are going to stay in a district when we are losing the best and the brightest? And the next, I want to turn this over to Laura.
Okay, I just want to, Tracy's tall. Just want to spend a few moments talking about in-service. First of all, just taking a look at what the law says. I'm not going to read this to everyone here, but this is the Florida statute that sets up in-service language. And it's basically our understanding that they defer to the school board to come up with our master in-service plan. I looked far and wide to find specific language in the statute and in DOE regulations regarding follow-up, and it's just not there. Also, as far as the DOE, cut and pasted a little bit from their handbook here, but I want to point out the red section down there. 1 in-service point shall be equivalent to 1 clock hour of participation. So right there, they are telling you that we have a right to that point for sitting there. Taking a look at what the magistrate said. To require implementation is not fully respectful of the professionalism of teachers, although we're used to that. The union's proposal is reasonable and respects our professional opinions. We ask that this board does the same thing. As far as the magistrate's decision, during the superintendent's rebuttal, he said the school district believes that the protocols require. Believes is not good enough for me, and it's not good enough for these people here. We're going to ask you the same thing we ask our students. Show me in the text. Show me where it says that follow-up is required. We have asked for this for years, and we've never been shown. I'm tired of hearing about what we think the DOE wants. I want to see it. And if you don't know what the DOE wants, ask. Why don't you fight for us? If this is what we're telling you we need and we want, why aren't you getting it for us? One of the problems with in-services, many of the problems with in-services, sometimes it tells us stuff we already know. I'm not going to go and waste my precious time doing follow-up paperwork to show you that I just learned something that I already knew. Sometimes they cover things I can't use. So I'm certainly not going to go implement a poor strategy and put my students through that just so that I can get a few extra points. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to me. And then also sometimes you can't put it into words. I teach economics. I've gone to workshops at the Federal Reserve, and it's increased my knowledge of economics, but I don't know that I could put down where exactly in the lesson plan I used that. And even if I did, I don't have time for it because I'm too busy developing my lesson plans. That's why, and we get it. We understand that you want us to go back and implement these things in the classroom, but we're just simply asking for that partial credit. We're not asking for all of it. We're just simply saying if we show up and we use our valuable time, please give us credit for that. Please treat us like professionals and trust that if you provide good in-services and they're good strategies, we will use them. That's how we became an A school district, because we're using good strategies. And if you really value this follow-up paperwork, maybe you could give us some time to do it.
I want to talk to you for a few minutes about insurance. As the table shows, we have had a drastic increase in insurance premiums across the United States. But as you can see by our table, while insurance premiums continue to increase and skyrocketing, the contribution of our board still remains the same. While your employees are taking the hit of 441% increase in 2014, an additional 78% increase in 2015, which ultimately results in a loss of net pay. Our magistrate even concurs that even with the district's proposed $500 salary increase that they proposed at the table, employees are still experiencing a net loss in pay due to their ever-increasing insurance contributions when the board is not increasing their contributions. As Mr. Van Zandt, when he wrote in his recommendations of how to respond to this, one of the comments that he made was the lowest insurance plan that we have right now is $288.07. We proposed $300. He said we would be crediting employees back. The CCEA never intended for the district to have to credit money back to an employee. When we said the $300, we hadn't even bargained the insurance rates. We didn't know what the insurance rates were going to be. They were not finalized. It was a ballpark figure. Our intent was for the district to cover the premium of the lowest cost health plan. Mr. Holthauser said that even with our new 288 plan, that the school district would have an increasingly significant amount in the budget. Well, I can tell you personally, and I'm sure the instructional staff can tell you personally, with our increasing premiums, we're seeing a significant decrease in our paychecks.
I was just going to say good evening, but it's not. It's good morning. I get to speak about leapfrogging, and just a point of interest here that I want you to know. Ray Fisher is our co-chair in the bargaining team. He is absent here because 3 weeks ago the county hired him to test ESOL children at Orange Park High School. So he certainly wasn't consulted in the time, and neither was I. As my dentist will tell you, he's missing me in his chair. Leapfrogging is a term we use internally that describes a situation related to the placement of new hires. Teachers employed prior to the 12-13 school year have fallen behind in the old salary schedule by 3 years, a fact that is not in dispute. For example, if I'm a teacher of 10 years experience, I am only being paid at the 7-year step level. In 2013, we abandoned the old step salary scale, and adopted a new entry-level salary scale to comply with state statute that we had not complied to in the 2011 state law. Teachers employed at that time were rolled to the new step 3 steps behind due to the steps they had been denied in the prior years. These steps are gone forever, because the new salary schedule only applies to teachers entering this school district. Bargaining from this point forward was to be about money, not steps. The problem is that no money has ever been brought to us. It's never been on the table, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with the entry-level salary scale. Teachers in Clay have watched new hires enter this district with the same amount of years of experience as themselves, yet these new hires were given experience credit for all the years of service they bought from other districts. So this is an economic issue. As a result, new hires make more money than the veteran Clay teachers with the same years of teaching experience. Accepting this proposal would save the district hundreds of thousands of dollars. The last time I heard, we were in financial situation. So respecting your veteran teachers would save you hundreds of thousands of dollars, and yet the superintendent objects to saving money. If you don't like this language, there is a simple solution to it. Make our people whole. I need you to clearly understand the new entry-level salary scale. We went into that agreement when we got the governor's money because it was the only time this district, and because the CCA has always worked with this district until recently, the only time we can flatten the scale out to comply with Florida statute was to use the governor's money. The $6.2 million didn't come to all these people. Do the math. About $5.4 million was used to flatten the schedule. The law says it has to be increments equal. So if you look at the schedule now, it's far different than the old step schedule, where some steps were $4,000 and some were $300. That's not what has to happen now because of state statute. Statute says there has to be equal increments. So the entry-level salary scale was done in $1,000 increments. That's why. It was compressed. It cost a lot of money. If we didn't agree to use the governor's money, you could have never done it. In 2010-11, we didn't get a step. In 2011-12, we didn't get a step. In 2012-13, we got a step that was equal to 90% because it was done way down the world. You know, we're always saying, wait. You know, wait for the fourth calculation. Sure. Fourth calculation comes out next month, but then Ms. Legetko said at the last school board meeting, well, I'll know in June and July what we really have. Are you kidding me? 2013, I told you how it was converted. 2014-15, no step. 2015-16, no step. Let me just regress for a second. Now you see where the no steps are all along the way. We've never put money on this salary scale. That wasn't the intent. If we had put money on it once, you wouldn't have this problem. Just once, you would have taken everybody off the entry-level salary scale. It has been mentioned that in Mr. Van Sant's rebuttal that the CCEA outnumbers the people in the cast, and that's why we have this inflated 60% and all our teachers are great. Newsflash, all your teachers are great. But I want to take it one step further. Ask the question about your administrators. Ask the question what their rating is. And I will bet my paycheck their rating is reflective of us because we're a team. If they're highly effective, so are these people highly effective. To question, after they took you from a B district for the last 3 years, to question is even insulting. They are highly effective people. And I would want them teaching my children. I'm going to ask this school board for once to be impartial, to act like the legislative committee you are, to look at what was said by the impartial special magistrate. The reason the CCA did not object to the salary and the money issues, except for leapfrogging, which saves you hundreds and thousands of dollars, just figure it out. You hired 200 new teachers this year, 200. For the gaps you have of people leaving, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we didn't ask to be mean to the new people entering our district. We asked to be treated the same as the new people entering our district. I truly, and if you saw when the people were speaking, I was crying. I'm a guidance counselor. This is foreign to me. I don't play your lawyer games. I don't know your lawyer games. I only know kids. And to see for 4 months you've listened to people come up here, employees and teachers, and tell you about their hardships. Listen. You have to listen at some time in your life to what people are saying and not the party line. When I sit there and people were talking, I have teachers texting me. They must be on their planning period. And they're quoting the Bible. And I sit there and I thought to myself, where am I? I'm in a vacuum? We were invoke God to something that is just simple respect. We're not asking you for any money. We're asking you for the AC language to protect our own, for the leapfrogging. Insurance is a moot point. We're at RFP. That's really a moot point. And the magistrate was absolutely clear. If you're not going to give us insurance, put the supplement language back where it was. Notice that Mr. Van Sant never objected to the supplement language, and yet he wrote recommendations about the supplement language. You can't write recommendations about something you never objected to. The administrator's supplements are 38.5. They got increased. We have year after year said to the school board, because the school board has come with us with, we have no money, and all this association does is work with you. All this association does is sit there and go, okay, we'll do a waiver. We're tired of waiving. We're tired. These people can't pay their mortgages. These people can't pay their electricity. These people can't help their children go to school, go to college. But you have an opportunity to do a lot of things to show whose side you're on that costs you no money. That is the ultimate of disrespect. And I want to clarify one more thing that Mr. Holsizer said. CESPA, and I really do kind of resent CESPA being bought up in a CCA impasse, but anyway, CESPA accepted the insurance. CESPA, he obviously doesn't know, is in impasse for the 2014-15 school year. We are in impasse in the 15-16 school year. So we accepted our contract last year, and we signed the exact same thing. So they didn't accept insurance. We had already accepted it. The question right now is the 2015-16 school year, and CESPA's a year behind us. I'm going to implore you to accept the recommendations of the special magistrate. Put us back to being an A school. We want to remain an A district, and we can only do that with your help. Thank you.
We still have a minute and 30 seconds left, and I don't like following the president because she always punctuates and everything, but I did get a reminder that we have our folks from St. John's here, and they have let me know that the statement that was made about St. John's earlier declaring that it's illegal is not true. That is not the case, and I have just been informed of that.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Holhauser.
Well,
you have 2 minutes remaining.
I just want to point out that that's not what the St. Johns County District Labor Attorney told me, but we'll go from here. We'll see what happens in St. Johns County. And I never did, and that's something that it was relayed to me, and if you look at the statute, there's some case law that supports that. I did not take that position in the impasse hearing. I admit that. I'm not going to say I did. But it's an issue, and we'll see how that gets resolved. They're taking that position, my understanding, or at least that it's illegal to insist to impasse on that language. Couple things I want to just rebut. You saw some documentation or a slide concerning how many people are leaving the school district. There's no indication that is extraordinarily high in terms of the other school districts. There's always turnover in different jobs, and if we went back and looked at the number of folks that have left the school district since 2011 when that PSC language was eliminated, and it's been relatively flat. It's gone up and down. It hasn't been over increasing during that time frame. So if you just look at a snapshot of 1 year, yeah, it went up, but not it hasn't been going up over that period of time since the Florida legislature stopped allowing PSC contracts. And again, I think that when you have automatic renewal of annual contracts and they can only be terminated for just cause, or if there's poor performance, that is just like a professional services contract, and it's a distinction without a practical difference whatsoever. Again, as to in-service training, I'd have to say that in the pending grievance arbitration, the school district did provide documentation and its argument based on the statutes and the rules of the Florida Department of Education of why in-service training has to be completed when there's implementation phase, and I just want to put that on the record for that. We have, I think, come here with the idea of resolving a few issues. There are, and I disagree about the supplements. The magistrate did not recommend anything on supplements. If you look at the special magistrate's recommendations, he made a specific recommendation to each item. Supplements, he didn't. He said first he's reluctant to add anything to the budget, and then he said maybe we should consider it if the insurance proposal is not adopted. He never recommended either our proposal or the union's proposal. He left it wide open. So there's no reason to object to it because there was no recommendation to object to. And that's something that I think this body needs to resolve. And again, because of the cost, and I think it's like $250,000 or so that would cost, plus the fact that we're at the top compared to other school districts that are comparable in supplements, that we recommend that this board adopt all of the superintendent's recommendations. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Holhauser. So both parties have had an opportunity to present their cases. Do I hear a motion to adopt the Employers School District of Clay County Chief Executive Officer's recommendations to the school board?
I'll move approval. I'll second.
I have a motion for approval and a second by Ms. Condon. We'll take this to discussion now. So at this time, the board is going to move into discussion, and I'll start down on the end. Ms. Studdard, you can go first.
Before you got the motion, I was going to ask if we could have a 10-minute break. I really need a break right this minute. Could we please have a break? 5 minutes?
Okay, we will take a 5-minute recess. Okay.
Sorry.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started again. If I could get you all to please take your seats. We're gonna go ahead and bring this meeting back to order. So we have a motion. Hang on, before you start, we're gonna have both parties. Yeah, we need to get both parties present, please. Okay. If I could go ahead and get quiet in the room, please. Okay, we have a motion and a second before the board, and we have moved in to deliberation. So, Ms. Studdard, I'll start down at the end, and we'll work our way this way.
Since the motion was to, tell me exactly how the motion was stated.
It was a negative motion.
The motion was to adopt the employer's school district of Clay County's Chief Executive Officer, the CEO, his recommendations to the school board.
Okay, so it's in entirety. So as when
Yes.
you're getting comments from the board, let me ask Mr. Sykes, then should I address each of the four items separately, or just say I either do or don't support?
Yes, ma'am. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but this is what's going to basically happen is the board has an opportunity to review each essentially recommendation package, and if one is adopted, then it's adopted. Okay. And I believe because the petitioner has brought a recommendation first, it is a recommendation that they're making, and the board has the opportunity to eject it. Here's what basically the board has the opportunity to do: they can adopt it in toto, deny it. Then the next one would be up to your discretion, but it would normally just be the special magistrate's recommended order, adopted or rejected. The union has now filed their own recommendation, then you adopt or reject it. And if all is rejected, then the board has the opportunity to either maintain the status quo, or they can go forward with each issue as has been framed by the special magistrate and adopt or reject.
Okay. May I ask a question before
Sure.
Ms. Studdard
Yeah.
goes? So, Mr. Sykes, you want us to actually adopt or deny each one of those? Shouldn't we start with the special magistrate's recommendation, since that's really the reason that we're here?
Usually what happens when a matter goes on appeal, the appeal is granted or denied. The appeal here is made by the school board, by the administration, and they've made a recommendation. What happens then, the board rejects it or accepts it in toto, okay? And then what happens if you reject it in toto, then you go to the next issue, which would be the special magistrate, that's the recommended order. So you accept it or you reject it. I mean, now's the time to discuss all of the aspects of it.
Would we want to just take them one item at a time?
The way to do that is to reject every one of them.
Okay.
And then you have, if the board rejects the entire recommendations of the superintendent, then rejects the entire recommendations of the special magistrate, and then rejects the entire recommendations of the union, then you have at that point in time the opportunity one issue at a time.
Yeah, if I could just say, I read the union's recommendations that they sent last night, and their recommendation is to support what the special magistrate, so it's no different.
So basically,
Right.
what happens in the appeal is from the administration appealing the recommendation of the special magistrate. So you either accept or reject the appeal. If you reject the appeal, then the issue is, do you accept or reject the special magistrate's ruling? And if you reject it, then you have two issues. You have basically, you have more than that, but what it boils down to, your options are to go over each issue one at a time, accept or reject those issues one at a time. Or if you do all that stuff, then essentially what happens is fundamentally both sides are stuck with status quo.
It seems to me that we would only be voting on the special magistrates and either adopt or deny and then move forward from that point, and that we shouldn't be voting on superintendent's recommendations or CCA's recommendations. It seems to me that it's the issue why we're here is the special magistrate's recommendations.
And when you take a look at the appellate process, when you look at it, it's appeal granted, appeal denied. Appeal granted in part, appeal denied in part. So what's happening under quasi-judicial proceeding, you either grant or you deny the requested relief. or you can grant in part or deny in part, or you can deny in toto, okay?
It just seems like we're doing an awful lot. But I do think if we are going to grant or deny the superintendent's appeal, then we should also grant or deny the CCA's appeal.
Well, what
And do
hap-
all three, just in the, to make sure we're doing it all right.
Well, the expressio unis alteris exclusio. The expression of one is the exclusion of the other. So if the board, by expression and adoption, adopts any one of the three, it is by definition denied the other two.
All right.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Sykes before we proceed?
Okay.
Ms. Studdard, go ahead.
I'm just going to make this pretty short and sweet, I think. On the, I guess I'm going to comment on the 4 items that are in contention here. Leapfrogging, I agree with the magistrate on this. I think that this board in future years can look at perhaps better ways to do this, but I think for right now, I would be comfortable going forth with the 3 years that the magistrate recommended. In service, I believe that if the teachers do this in service, that they should get credit. Now there was a contingency on this with the DOE protocol, and it said in the magistrate's opinion, the school board should consult with DOE to ensure that partial credit without immediate implementation or use of a skill for those trainings that envision implementation does not violate any DOE protocol. With that proviso, I'm okay with that. The annual contracts, you know, I kept hearing the word respect today, and I really don't have a problem with that. I think that I would hate to know that I had been teaching 5 years and been highly effective, and that I don't know. Sometimes you just got to do what's right, and you know, I'm looking at the special magistrate's wording here, and he was talking about what is in the best interest of the district and the employees and Clay County. So, you know, I agree with the special magistrate on this. The insurance proposal, certainly the $300 that was first there, I thought, you know, we don't need to give credit, but then now it's back to the $288. It's a shame that the health insurance has gotten so out of hand that it's affected our this district. It bothers me that with health insurance and this board's inability to give raises in the past, that someone can work and 3 years later is making less money than they were making. It just doesn't make sense. I think more than anything of the details, what I'm saying basically is I support the magistrate's recommendation straight down the line.
All right, thank you.
No, I'm not through.
Okay, all right.
And this really has nothing to do with it, but on the supplements, this is plain English. However, if the school board does not adopt the union's insurance proposal, it should consider maintaining the $38,000 figure to calculate supplements as a fair concession to the union, which is in the public interest. There is that caveat with the big if there. That, you know, he was not wanting to say yes or no on that because he's got a big if there, that if you don't do the insurance, at least give these poor people that.
Madam Chair, I apologize for
No, that's
the sound
okay.
of
I
my
was going to
voice.
ask you if you needed a break.
No, I'm okay, thank you. But I just apologize for the quality of my voice. I think that the very words collective bargaining would indicate that both sides should come together and work together for the best interest of both parties. And it's unfortunate that we're here at the impasse process because clearly to me, collective bargaining would work much better than impasse since it's much more the exception than the norm. But nonetheless, we're here, and I've really struggled a lot with this this whole process. I've sought a lot of opinions. I contacted FSBA and talked to a number of legislators and really wanted to understand the whole picture. And for me, when I was elected and I took this office, I took an oath of office to uphold the Constitution of the state of Florida and the laws and statutes thereof and of the United States. And for me, 4 of these items seem to be statutory, and that would be that the things that involve money, we have the responsibility to have that fund balance at 3%. And I was not on the board when we dropped below 3%, and I can't in good conscience vote to drop back below that when it appears we may get the money. And again, with the 4th calculation, and we don't know where proration will go, that is of concern to me. I think that I do think there is an issue for our district in the leapfrogging. I understand that. I talked to a number of teachers over the past couple weeks, and I understand that conceptually. My concern is for our students. If we pass what has been recommended here, that our students who need such things as speech pathology and some of the upper level math classes where we have struggled to have even people fill the positions we have open today, I'm concerned that they won't have the services that they need, which is our utmost reason of being here. So I do believe that leapfrogging in some way should be addressed in the collective bargaining process going forward. I think there is an opportunity for resolution there, as well as it sounds like there could be some compromise reached on in-service trainings and how those are accredited. But I'm just not comfortable to move forward on those things because of those reasons.
Okay. Ms. Kirkus.
Well, I thought a lot about this too, as I'm sure we all have, because we do want to have a good working relationship with our employees. And let me say right now that I, Janice Karakas, have nothing but the utmost respect for all of our staff, our teachers, and our support employees. And I do believe that you are the reason that we are an A district, and we have nothing but the best here. So I agree with the special magistrate's recommendations completely. I think the insurance amount should be put to the $288.07, and we shouldn't be crediting anybody back. But I agree with the in-service. If you sit for 4 hours, you should be paid for the 4 hours. If it's something that doesn't apply, that you can't implement back in, you should get partial credit. I agree with that completely. The leapfrogging, I mean, that's wrong. I agree that we should protect the employees that we have now so that new employees coming in are not making more money. They're coming in at the same level. Mrs. Studdard put it into, perfect words as to what she said. We do respect you. We need to work together with you. It's sad that we couldn't do it this year. Something that I noticed that Ms. Butler gave us was the sign-in sheet for your bargaining sessions, and this caught my eye, Mr. Brodsky, because we adopted a bargaining team that had 6 people on it, yet the first page I'm counting 11 people on the bargaining team. So I guess that's something we'll have to address and look at down the road, because 6 people, it's not the bargaining team?
No, that's not the bargaining team, no.
Okay, so I thought that was the bargaining team when she handed that to us, and I thought, why is there 11 names on this list when there should only be 6, because we're paying 6 people to bargain on behalf of the district. So my recommendation would be to approve the special magistrate's recommendation with the amendment to the insurance number 3 and change that amount to $288.07. Thank you.
It is my opinion that the public and the state statutes have made it clear that the teaching profession should be elevated to the level of accountability and regard that our society grants all professionals, whether they be nurses, lawyers, doctors. Everybody is required to be accountable. Clearly, a professional's job certainty should never hinge on the outcome of one standalone evaluation. That could never be considered fair practice or treating our teachers like the professionals that they are. Our current practice does show preference to hiring back our own teachers, while also maintaining the ability to eventually hire an outside applicant should they prove to be more qualified, thus ensuring that we have the best of the best in every position in our district. As for the second recommendation, the DOE protocols cannot be overridden by a special magistrate ruling or by a vote by this board. Until I have evidence that the DOE would be in support of awarding partial in-service points, I can't in good conscience rule that we should do that. The magistrate cited our financial state as a reason to not increase wages and supplements, but then said we should contribute more to health costs. If we can't afford one, we certainly can't afford the other. Whether we pay more in wages or in health insurance, the money spent would further deplete our fund balance, which would be an unacceptable, intentional violation of the state's mandated 3%. The burden of health care costs is not unique to Clay County. It's not unique to the school board. It's a painful cost that the majority of Americans who take insurance are currently incurring due to the changes in legislation from the federal and state government. The district is following, point number 4, the district is following the current MOU to withhold the 3 years experience from new hires in effort to keep things fair. This has caused some trouble in filling some positions of which we are in dire need, such as speech pathology. Therefore, I don't believe it would be prudent or in the best interest of meeting the needs of our students to put this in permanent contract language. That being said, I'm in support of the superintendent's recommendations.
Okay. Thank you. Could I please some quiet? Okay. Okay.
If I might.
Yeah.
I wrote down what I wanted to say so that I made sure to get it all in. And I don't appreciate...
Excuse me.
I don't appreciate those comments.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up here. On number 1, annual contracts. I believe that what the union is asking us to do is to override the intent of Senate Bill 736. And I just want to quote Governor Scott when he Governor, when he signed that bill. He basically said, we must recruit and retain the best people to make sure every classroom in Florida has highly effective teachers. His closest advisor said the landmark bill recognizes that teachers are the most important factor in schools when determining a child's success. Test-based merit pay plan will help attract and keep teachers, while eliminating tenure will enable school officials to get rid of the bad ones more quickly. So I just want to say this. When I go to work, and I have to agree with what Ms. Gilhousen said, when I go to work, I strive to do the best that I can. I strive to be the best at what I do because I know I am being measured against my peers. Okay? Okay, this is my final warning. If I do not get some quiet in the room, I'm going to start asking you all to leave. Okay? This is it. I do not believe that overriding the intent of the legislature with respect to annual contracts is in the best interest of our community. In regards to issue number 2, the in-service training points, again, I believe that the Magistrate expressed concern about violating DOE protocol, but he wasn't so much concerned with violating same protocol when it came to issue number 1. In respect with insurance contributions, again, while the magistrate basically said that a $2.9 million salary proposal wasn't really good for our financial condition, yet $2.5 million in insurance. I don't think he put that fact together. If we can't afford one, we can't afford the other. In respect to leapfrogging, leapfrogging, this is an issue of recruiting individuals in hard-to-fill positions, as everybody here mentioned, such as speech. Right now, we have an MOU in place, and I think what the district has said is that let us evaluate the impact of that MOU before we go forward and put this in language. I don't think we understand the full impact yet, and it was expressed that there may be some issues with that. So let us evaluate the impact. Let's finish out this year with the current MOU and then readdress it. I am not opposed to that, but let's finish out the year with the current MOU. And lastly, wages and supplements. Again, the district had proposed to come back to negotiation on salary increases after we got to 3%. And until that fourth calculation comes in and we're certain that we are at 3%, I don't think it's prudent to put further strain on the budget, on the fund balance, until we know for sure that our financial condition is stable. And that's really what I'm committed to doing, making sure that our financial condition is stable and then, revisiting this issue. So my position is in favor of supporting the superintendent's recommendations. So with that, I have a motion for approval.
Would you restate the motion, please?
Yes, let me restate the motion here. What did I do with it? I had it here. It was in my notes. 1 second.
Status quo has got to go.
No, that's not it. 1 second. Is it under here?
On our money.
We're your teachers.
Okay.
You had it written on the agenda.
I had it right here. Excuse me.
My notes reflect that excuse me, I apologize.
Excuse me.
You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
It was a motion to adopt the Employer School District of Clay County Chief Executive Officer's recommendations to the board.
Yep. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2. With that, this meeting is adjourned.